Yeah, it's really difficult to follow our conversation because you've all basically said a lot of what I wanted to say. From being completely authentic about where you are. Like, there's nothing wrong, again, with posting or doing anything on social media, because what matters is really the intention and the heart behind it, and it all starts with you. I'm trying to think now, because like I say, you've said most of what I wanted to say, but I think what I will speak on are fear of failure, and then I'll give you like 5 little tips to achieve or to work at building what you want to build. I don't know about y'all, but who has a dream that they feel is bigger than themselves? Does anybody ever go to bed at night and think, I feel this calling on me that I look at and I just feel like rolling back, going under the covers and never bringing my head back up? Who has that? Who doesn't have that? Right, so I'm in the right room with the right women, because for me, I'm coming to a phase in my life where I'm really learning how to shake off fear, and I'm really learning how to walk into what I feel is resting on my shoulders, and the magnitude of it is crippling sometimes. You know, like when I wake up and I see where I'm going and I'm like, whoa, 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 like slow it down, slow it down. Let me change it up and give it to somebody else. You know, McDonald's for the rest of my life doesn't seem so bad, you know? But I guess I won't put titles and tags for you to follow. I'm just gonna speak. But for me, like 2019 has been a year of unraveling, which has meant that I've had to face a lot of fears that I was not ready to face. In March 2019, March 10th, Sunday morning, there was a plane that crashed on its way to Kenya from Ethiopia. And on that flight, my dad was on his way home. Now, the relevance of this is one of my biggest fear has always been height. Like, I mean, I couldn't even go into a tall building and look down and be like, hey, or like go on rides and be like, woohoo! For me, it's like, Father God, everything I've ever done, I apologize for. If I can just reach the bottom safe, I will be fine. I wasn't really afraid of flying, as in on aeroplanes. I wasn't afraid of flights, but I was afraid of heights. But as you can imagine, when this happened, my fear of heights multiplied, and then it evolved into a fear of flight. And then 2 weeks after the crash, I get a message from my mom saying, we have to go to Kenya to do a memorial for your dad, but after that, we have to go to Ethiopia to the crash site to see where, obviously, my dad died. And it was really important, so it felt like I had no choice. So we're on the plane, on our way to Kenya, and I'm sitting on seat 24A, which is like a window seat. And I'm going through the emotions. I'm already terrified. And my brother turns around. He was sitting in front of me. He turns around, he goes, Zippy. And I'm like, yep. He's like, you're sitting in the seat that Dad was sitting in, seat 24A. So my mind starts racing. It starts going crazy. And I'm thinking, this is the last thing my dad saw in the last 6 minutes of his life, because that flight had taken off, was only in the air for 6 minutes. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, this is where he was sat. I'm looking below me and I'm like, this is what he saw. And I start going into hysterics. I start shaking, I start crying, and I was crippled. We land in Kenya and I'm like, thank God. We go through the memorial, we do everything that we're supposed to be. And then we're on the flight back, but this time we have to stop in Ethiopia before coming back to the UK. And I remember they booked our flights, like my family members, instead of sitting us in a row, they sat us one behind each other. So again, I ended up at seat 24A, and my brother was behind me, my mom was behind him, and my other brother was in front of me. And I remember just looking down and thinking, this is the last thing. And at that point, I was really struggling with insomnia. I couldn't sleep. So by the time we're on this flight, I haven't slept for over 24 hours. And it gets to a point where your body's like, yo man, I don't know what you're doing to me, but I'm not about this. So my body checked out. and I fell asleep. I remember I was sitting next to an Ethiopian girl, and as the plane was landing, I woke up thinking we were crashing, and I was squeezing her hand so much, and I just remember sort of like screaming, and she held my hand and she was like, it's okay, it's fine. And we landed and it was fine. And then I flew back to the UK. And from that point, I started having night terrors. I was captivated by my fear. Like I would go to sleep and I would see the things that nightmares are made of, but at this point, they're not nightmares anymore. This reality has become my life, you know? And then I remember wondering what I was gonna become after this. Because the last thing when you go through a trauma and you are worried and you are fearful of becoming that trauma. So like if you've ever been raped, you don't want to become the girl that was raped for the rest of your life. So you do everything you can to get to a place where you don't even resemble somebody who's been raped. Or where you've been in a domestic violent situation and you're like, I don't want to become the girl that was abused. And I decided in my head and in my heart, I didn't want to become the girl with the dead dad who died on a plane, because that's not what my dad would want for me, which meant that I had to go into a journey of digging into myself what I wanted to become. And at the moment where looking in front of me, life, this massive destiny that, because it's still there, it's still in the background, it doesn't leave you through your trauma. You just wonder, like, if I'm meant to do this, how am I meant to do that and carry this as well? And I just remember all the conversations I had ever had with my dad about fear. And he used to say things to me like, you have your fear doesn't have you. And you're like, that sounds really great, but to translate it into where I am and what I'm feeling is a completely different thing. And I remember my dad sort of saying, you know, Zipporah, there isn't a lot of people in the world that can look at and say, you can become anything you want to be. But you, when I see you, you can and will become everything you want to be. And the only things that will stop you are the things that you let stop you. So in that moment, I decided I'm not going to let fear anymore. It doesn't mean that I don't feel fear. So on my 24th birthday, I made a decision to face my biggest and my most evolved fear, which was heights and the skies. And at this point, planes. So I spoke to my brothers and I'm like, guys, I've got an idea. We're gonna go skydiving. You know? I remember telling my mom, and my mom's like, you don't think I'm lost enough in a plane? You just want to follow your dad, you know, African parents, you know, the sensitivity. And you're like, no, I just don't want to be stuck in my fear anymore. I just don't want to be stuck. I don't want to be caged by it. And I made a commitment that I was going to face all my fears individually, one by one. And the best way to start is with the biggest one. So I remember getting on that plane, and it's not really much of a plane, a skydiving plane, it's more like a tin that you all sit on and it's got wings. At the back it says, be careful, do not sit on this metal slab. If you sit on it, we will die. So I asked the guy that I'm strapped to, like, this has to be like some cruel joke. He's like, no, the plane is really small. When you redistribute weight unevenly, it falls. So at this point, I'm looking at my KB and I'm like, yo, KB, are we really doing this? And the guy's like, did you sign all the paperwork? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, so at this point, you no longer have an option. We're jumping whether you like it or not. And he says, but don't worry, I'll give you a warning. I'll count you 1 to 3. And then I remember watching Will Smith's video on skydiving, and he's like, they only get to 2, and then they jump. So when he came up to the front of the plane, I'm waiting for the 2. So he goes, are you ready? I'm like, yep, tilts my head back and jumps out. So like now I'm mid-air with no preparation. And it was the most terrifying thing I had ever done. Like my whole life flashed before my eyes in 10 seconds. And 24 years is a really long time, you know? And I just remember feeling really scared. Then realizing this isn't going away, so I opened my eyes and I was like, woohoo! This is the most exhilarating thing I've ever done. And at that point, I felt real freedom. And real freedom comes with this is my fear. But if I open my eyes, what I see is not actually as scary as what I imagined, because what I was imagining was a lot worse than what I was feeling. And then we got to a point in the air where we plateaued. And we weren't moving at a fast pace anymore, we were just floating in the air. And the guy goes, see, you had nothing to be scared of. And I was like, yeah. And I'm observing all of this beauty that is in front of me. Like, you know when rivers look like worms on the ground beneath you? And you realize things that are so big are actually so little. That's what happens when you start facing your fears. And this is the most incredible thing that I have done. And if you can, go skydiving. Trust me. I know. But honestly, I thought I was gonna die. And I remember the guy was like, have you seen everything you want to see at this point? And I was like, yeah, I think I've seen it. He was like, are you chilled? I'm like, yeah, I'm chilled. And then he was like, I'm gonna do a whirl. So he held the thing that we were both strapped in, and he started doing whirls around. And I was like, this is incredible. When you are hanging outside of your fears and you start enjoying the ride, you have such an incredible time. And after that, I quit my job and I started really living the life that I want to live for myself. Because at the end of the day, I know I wasn't put on this planet to pay bills. I wasn't put on this planet to be building somebody else's purpose and destiny and dreams. My doing that will help others fulfill their purpose and their destiny, but I wasn't born to work in a call center. Can you see all of this potential? Do you get what I mean? Like, and none of you were meant for that either. We are cut from different cloths, each of us, which means that there is so much work to be done on this earth. Like outside of that, there's climate change, women's rights, like there is so much that we need to do. And I think it starts with this big dream feels crippling. It doesn't feel so much like a dream sometimes, it just feels like a nightmare, and I don't want to open my eyes to face it. But I'm telling you, when I hit the ground, I was screaming. I was like, woo, let's go again. We've just done 10,000 feet, and now I'm ready to do 20,000. And my brother was like, you need to chill. I was like, no, we need to go. After that, like I said, I quit my job, and I really started living. I left some toxic friendships, and I was good with that. I was like, hey, I don't need this right now. But it doesn't mean that you have to shut out toxic people, because toxic people also need to see the light. And they can only see the light when you are being a light to them. But for the period before you start becoming a light, it means you need to detach, see the light within yourself, and then go back into darkness. Otherwise, you're going to get swept up. And then I started really chasing my dreams. And that's why I'm here today, which is seeing you guys being empowered. But it's me standing here shaking like, ooh, I don't know how this is going to go. But we're here, so we're falling. And then the next hurdle of fear that I had to start facing, because it comes with levels. Fear is like that annoying friend who brings their cousin everywhere they go, and it was the fear of failure, like the fear of failure is so crippling. It will have you doing nothing instead of failing at something, always. But you always have to remember that the worst thing you can do is fail. And if you are wise enough, when it comes to fear of failure, you will start by redefining your understanding of failure. Failure is always an opportunity to learn, to grow, to progress. All of the people that are exceptional and extraordinary in the world have all been exceptional and extraordinary in failing. All of them. Do you know that, like, look at these lights? Incredible, right? The guy that made the light bulb, do you know how many times you have to fail at something to keep on going? All of them. I can't tell you how many times Beyonce has probably failed something, but all we see is the success behind the finished product. And you have to remember, you have to give yourself the grace to fail. And if you can learn how to fail exceptionally, you will never have to worry about making a mark or making history. Lem is a perfect example of that. How many times Melissa has failed in the background, she might never tell us. When you plan an event and you turn up to the event and it's you, your best friend's sister, and the guys that are doing the catering, you're scratching your head like, yo, you know. But after that, she goes, I didn't do this, I didn't advertise right, I didn't do this right. Or you find that actually, failure can serve as redirection. There are so many things that I thought I was supposed to be, that I was going to do, that I was going to become, and then I found myself failing at them, and then being redirected. And not being afraid of that is incredible. Jump and leap, you might not land. And you know, when we're doing the whole skydiving thing, there was me, my brothers, and my best friend and life partner. And you know, they said to us, we have to separate you guys and put 2 on a plane, because we can't put 4 people from the same family on the same plane in case something goes right. The second thing we had to do was sign a disclosure form in case of death. So that was a possibility. Then when we did the talk with the parachute thing, they're like, by the way, sometimes both the first chute and the secondary chute fail. You know? And in this case, all you can do is follow the instructions of your instructor. So I had as much of a chance of getting off that plane as I did not getting off that plane. And in the same way, we have as much chance in succeeding as we do in failing. But failure becomes a safety net when we learn that it's not a bad thing. When you have a healthy relationship with failure, you know, like I'm supposed to be doing like clean January, trying to get myself snatched back in shape. And you know, today I've had a full English breakfast. I've had 3 hot chocolates, 2 lattes, and an apple juice. I've drunk my calorie intake. You know, for me, that's a bona fide, certified failure. But I'm good with that, because tomorrow is going to present another opportunity for me not to fail. And in doing that, you free yourself from the pressure of needing to be great, and you start becoming great. It's in those moments when you stop thinking and trying to avoid the thing, you start becoming the thing. And a lot of people, all that happens is you keep failing and you keep enjoying the process. And then one day you realize, oh snap, that wasn't a failure, but that success doesn't become everything else. You keep on going, seeing what else can I fail in? What else can I fail in and then grow? And you know, and this is how most people get there. Like when you listen to someone like Tiffany Haddish, who loves a good Tiffany Haddish? You know, but the reason her story is so inspiring is because it's full of so many failures, and a lot of them are not even her own failures. And it's so, 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 so powerful. So feel the fear, do it anyway. Feel the fear of failure, and still do it anyway. Stand up, learn, and keep moving. And then I'm just gonna give you five tips that Michelle thought they're gonna be helpful for you guys in pursuing your dreams and really going after what you're going after. What you're doing is so amazing. You're all doing really incredible things, but you're all doing them with safety nets. And you're all doing them within the boat. And you know, I'm a Christian, so I'm gonna use a biblical analogy. You all know Peter. My man had to step out the boat, you know. And for something to really work, sometimes you have to step out the boat. And that means ditching your safety net, because you have to learn how to be intentional about everything that you're doing. The first key thing that you can do in succeeding in anything is being intentional about it. If it's like self-development, be intentional with spending time with yourself to find out what really needs developing. Be intentional with something as simple as failure, because if you're intentional about failing and you know that, you know, I can fail, I'm good, it means that you're going to be intentional about your success. The other thing that I can say that really, and these are things, I would never stand here and tell you to do things that I haven't done myself. You know, there are loads of people out there right now giving self-help that they've never used, diet plans, they don't know whether they work or not. But this genuinely works for me. And the first thing is just being intentional. Being intentional with your circle of friends, people who you trust, who you give what. Being intentional about investing. You said you started speaking in September, but now your intention, that was so almost like accidental. but now you're intentional about it. Be intentional about looking at people in your field, what they're doing that you like and what you don't like. Not to criticize, but to figure yourself out. The second thing would be being self-aware. Taking yourself, we've talked about it already. When you empower yourself, you're able to empower others. When you are aware of yourself, you're able to help others become aware of themselves. But most of all, when you are aware of yourself, you know what you're able to do, what you need to learn how to do, what you need to not do also. You know, like we're talking about the toxic traits that we all might have. You know, you see somebody wearing a busted item, you've got like that friend you want to call and be like, you know, and it's in being aware of yourself, because if you don't know your value, you can't grow your value, you know. And then the other thing would be valuing yourself. Really learning how to be like, you know what, I love my stretch marks. I love my bald patches and all, you know. I love the inconsistencies in my skin tone because there's so many. I go from like Beyonce to Naomi Campbell, you know, to Lupita Nyong'o, all in one like part of body, and learning how to value that. Because if you learn how to do that, nobody else can take value out of something that you know. You know, like if I say to you, my iPhone is worth, I don't know, how much do iPhones go for now? Like one point something? And then I start saying to you, yo, here you go. You can have this iPhone. I'll sell it to you for like, I'll take it off you for like £300. You know, like 300. Do you know how hard it is to get £300? And you're like, no thanks, I know how much this phone is worth. You can go buy it from a charity shop or whoever else will be giving you, you know, and that has to be the same thing. Don't find yourself shortchanging yourself because you don't know your value. And oftentimes you will find people in every industry that will take advantage of the amazing qualities you have because you don't know that they're there, and you might know that they're there and you don't value them. So I say to you, like, oh, you know, you talked about doing body contouring, and you're like, yeah, it's just something I do. I'll be like, yeah, come and do it. You can try it, do it all on me for free. And then there's people paying like, what, 2K, 3K for that to be done? But because you don't know your value, and you're not valuing it either, and there's people who are like, yeah, but I'm only trying to start out. You don't have to cheapen what you're doing for people to align with it. Don't ever find yourself doing that. I would rather have one client who's going to pay me the 1K that my work deserves than have 100 who are going to pay me £10 for it. Don't you ever dare sell yourself short. Don't do that. Don't. And then the third thing that I would say, is that the third thing? We've done 3, right? So the fourth thing would be to reflect. Reflect on everything you do. You know, there's a guy who said that the best thing you can do for yourself is sit at home at the end of each day and play back the tapes of your performance in that day. See what you're going to take from it or not take from it. It says that it can either prod you or applaud you. Tell you like, yo, Michelle, today, girl, or yo, Michelle, next time, you need to. And if you're not able to reflect on yourself, without reflection, there's no real room for progression. You know, it's the same with everything. If I'm doing my makeup and I'm not looking in the mirror, sis, you know, sis, and I have to keep looking in the mirror. Like, you know, loads of you have gone in the bathroom so many times today. You don't just go in there and do your business and leave. You go in there, it's like, my eyebrow's still intact. And that's the other thing that you have to make sure that you do is reflect. And the fourth thing is consistency. Consistency, consistency, consistency. It is the key to everything you do. If you fail, and you fail consistently, but you're learning consistently, you're going to get somewhere. But if you're not consistent with something, it will never grow. It won't grow. Think about the first time you did your eyebrows, you highlighted and contoured. Imagine if you left it then, and then today you were like, yeah, I'm going to LEM. Let me go back and do my makeup today. How great would that look at this point? And if you see some of the greatest people, they haven't done the most amazing things, but they've been consistent in the things that they have done. Usain Bolt didn't start where he is. He was consistent in his training. He was consistent in, but still give yourself the grace. you fall off the wagon, stand back up and be consistent with it. If I want to be a host, I am consistently putting myself forward. You are consistently seeing my craft on a daily basis. And if you want love, or you're in a relationship and you want it to grow, you're consistent with the love that you give. There's nothing worse than when you secure a guy, at the beginning he's buying you flowers, taking you out, midway the consistency is gone. Like, what the heck? Come on, bro. Do you get what I mean? And in the same way, our destiny, our calling, our purpose, and our dreams, like, we are that babe who's like, come on, you started with me like fire, you were buying me flowers, you were investing in this. Now I start approaching you, you get just a small element of me and you chill. Even your dream don't want to be anywhere near that. So I would say, feel the fear, do it anyway, be intentional, be self-aware, value yourself, reflect, and be consistent. I don't think there is any way you can go wrong with any of that stuff. And give yourself and people around you grace. And also be humble enough to learn. The one thing that I have always been told was a great skill that I have is the ability to be teachable. You haven't reached your destination, you're just beginning your journey. And if you can open your eyes and ears to people who've been doing it long before you were even born, how far will you go? If you look at like some of the people that are coming up, some of the musicians, you're listening to them and they're like, yeah. And then when somebody bigger than them is talking about them, they're like, yeah, I remember the first time that I met so-and-so. They were so teachable. She was so eager to learn. She wanted it. You know, every 2 seconds she was like, how can I do this? How can I do that? But the people who don't, you don't know their names, and you don't know their names for that reason. Be humble enough to start at the bottom as well. You want to be what? An actress? You want to be a presenter? You want to be a host? Start going to do them baby showers. You know them ones where the aunties are bumping you? You know, you're talking and they're like, oh my gosh, what's this child doing at the front talking to me? Where nobody respects you. If you can work on your dream when nobody's looking, nobody values it, and nobody respects it, then that is your dream. And if you can't, then you're kidding yourself. You're playing yourself. Pack it in. Go and work in the finance, you know, like whatever, like your worst nightmare. Because that's what we tend to do. We trade our dream for our worst nightmare. Like if I was told to go into the world of finance, boy, I'm dyslexic. 1 + 1 = 3, 4, and 5 sometimes. You know, but I'll find myself there running away from what I'm really supposed to be doing. So what I would say is really start at the bottom. I would rather start as an assistant in a film production crew, you know, just being like, can I bring you coffee, and getting into the world, than being a superstar at Sainsbury's. I would always choose that. And that's the one thing that I will say. And be true to your vision. Don't find yourself compromising to fit into something that you're not. You know, like I started doing no, I'm not going to say I'm going to value what I do. I started doing a YouTube-based chat show. These guys, they film it for me, and they are doing such an incredible job editing and doing the backspace for that. And in the beginning, there was pressure. You know, talk about Love Island, talk about to be trash, because trash blows up like this, but it's gone like this. It comes in like that and it goes back out like that. Because someone always learns how to do trash better than you do. So stay true to your vision. What you have, what is yours. They want a host. Don't go hosting nightclubs, being the drinks girl because you want a host, because it's not the kind of host you're trying to be. And that's the one thing that you have to learn how to do. You want to do cosmetic contouring? Don't go and start doing, eyelashes just so you can, do you get what I mean? But it's one of those things just so people can come to you. If you believe in your dreams, your passions, and your visions, you do all the other things I've told you to do, people will gather behind someone who is passionate about the craft. At the beginning, nobody's watching, but if you're consistent with it, at the end, everybody will be trying to know your name. And that's all I'll love and leave you guys. Thank you.